Welcome everybody to the June version of BACN at Home. So glad to see all of you here. We have an awesome program ready for you today. But I am going to share a couple of slides and kind of go back to some of our traditional BACN things. So the mission of BACN. I don't think we've really introduced this slide in a while. So our mission for our membership is to improve practice and business success for consultants through relationship building and programs. And so that's what we're doing today. We're going to learn a little bit about business development. We're going to have some time to connect. And at the end, we're going to have some time for some more networking. So it's definitely time for us to move to the main part of the programming today. So it is my great pleasure to introduce our speaker today. Doug is a friend of mine, and I know Doug from a mastermind group that we're both in through Judy Dang, for those of you who know Judy Dang. So Doug is going to be talking to us about 5 golden rules for business development in good times and bad. And we do have to take the balance of those things right now and take the bad and make it something that's good. Doug brings to us 3 decades of business development experience. He is a San Francisco Bay Area native. He's worked for Deloitte. He's had titles like Director of Sales, VP of Sales, VP of Business Development. His accolades are a long list. Do connect with him on LinkedIn and see that I'm not lying about his accolades. It's all on his profile. For the past 4 years, Doug has had his own consulting agency. So he's one of us. He's a coach and a consultant and a trainer and a facilitator. His sweet spot is working with legal and financial. He has a very strong background in those areas. He is a mountain biker. He lives up in Truckee. How's the weather up in Truckee today, Doug? Fog?
Yeah, it's nice.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I'm out by the coast and it's sunny as can be today. I had the fog out here yesterday. Anyway, Doug is he's an outdoors guy, a family man, and a really wonderful guy to have as a friend. So it's my pleasure to give to you, Doug Ott.
Thank you, Angela. I appreciate it. Very nice introduction. And hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be part of BACN. I joined the last one as my first time guest, and so it's a real honor to be a part of the group. And Angela has spoken so many good things about everyone, so I'm looking forward to diving in a little bit and talking about business development. What I'll do is I'm going to share my screen and pull up my presentation here. So what we're going to talk about is some of the golden rules of business development. And I'm going to just put this in slideshow mode. One second. Bear with me for a second. Okay. So what I want to talk about today is a lot of things I'll be telling you are just going to be friendly reminders. You guys are all in your own business. There are quite a few things that you're doing right. There may be some things that you have forgotten to do that you used to do, but just kind of fallen off that process. My goal is also to share some nuggets of new information. We tend to think of it that way. That's a good way to approach it. I look at business development in 3 main pillars. One is how to get better organized. 2, how to be better focused and strategically focused on who you're targeting. And then 3, being a little bit more tactical. And so I'm going to be touching a little bit on some of those areas. One of the first things we'll talk about right now is just how do you organize your relationships? Because for the most part, majority of the people that I work with, they have no organized process. I mean, old school, you had your Rolodex, maybe people working off 3x5 cards, but how do you organize the development of your relationships? And for those of you who've been in business for a while and you have 400, 500, 600 contacts or relationships, it can be overwhelming to try to organize the development of it, because if you want to be effective in business development, it's all about how do you stay top of mind with your key contacts? How do you really analyze who you should be focusing on and who you should be avoiding? I call them, there's the priority people in terms of ranking, but there's also the time wasters. And there's a lot of people that you've worked with in the past, you've known, you've just forgotten about because you don't have an organized process. So one of the first steps that I take all my clients through is, okay, let's figure out who you know in your network, and let's figure out how we can put it in a document and organize them in different buckets. So what I do is I actually have them put together a proprietary tool that I've given to all my clients called a relationship tracker. Excel spreadsheet, very simple to use, has some key columns in here. And what you really want to think about is, okay, how can I rank my contacts? A, B, C, that's the ranking I have. A being the most likely to give you business, C being the people who maybe will always take your coffee meeting, will always take your phone call, but will never give you business, right? Let's put them in the friendship bucket, right? So be very aware of those people because they can be critical time wasters. And then I like to put them in different buckets. So you have maybe your corporate contacts. You could have former colleagues from other companies you worked with in the past. You could have your alumni network, folks you just went to school with, whether it's undergrad or grad school. You could have just your referral network, and these could be folks within the consulting network. For me personally, one of the most rewarding things I have found since I've become my own consultant is how collaborative solo consultants are. You guys are a perfect example of that. And one of the things I did was when I first started out in my practice, I'm thinking, okay, how do I do this, right? I've always worked for a company. And it was amazing how collaborative people were who are theoretically my competitors to teach me how to do it. And we'll dive in a little bit more about that in a minute. But one of the things that's important here on the organizer is think about not just prioritization, but location. I oftentimes will put a filter across the top. An Excel spreadsheet can do this. And I'm happy to share with you a live document that you can have to play with. But not just the location, but the last contact. There's a rule of thumb that if you have an A-ranked contact, you should try to be in touch with that person at least 3 or 4 times a year in person if you can. Nowadays, it's via Zoom or phone conversation, just to stay top of mind and stay checked in with these people, right? I like to timestamp it. So I always put down LVM stands for left voice message with Susan Johnson. And the time before that, I met her for lunch. So then if you look back over the course of the year, you can see, okay, how many times did I reach out to Susan? How many times did I reach out to Bill Stevens? And so I like to have a time log of every time I've reached out, even if it's just I sent a person an email, because what you can do is if you can say, okay, on June 10th, I sent this person an email. And then now you move it forward to August or September and you realize, I never heard back from this person. Maybe I can check back in to see how they're doing because oftentimes people are busy. The comments, very important in terms of just making notes of what stood out about that person. Maybe from a business perspective, but also from a personal perspective. Person's great in business development, big foodie, watches the food channel, binge watches the food channel, loves to go eat and dine out. Maybe I'll keep a note of that because if I see the Michelin star restaurant opens up in San Francisco or Marin, I can just forward that on to that person just as an excuse to stay in touch, right? I think it's also important, and I'm sure you do this to a certain degree, is like, okay, this person has a spouse and kids. What is the spouse's name? How old are the kids? If you had actually marked down one kid is in high school, is going to graduate this year, what a great excuse to reach out and say, hey, I know that Lisa is graduating from high school. Sorry to hear that with COVID-19. Did you do anything special for her despite not being able to go to a grand ceremony, right? Little things like that can make a difference. Person's a wine lover. Favorite varietal is a cab. Probably not going to send this person a Chardonnay, right? Little things like that can make a big difference. Okay, so staying organized can make a huge difference. It gets all that information out of your head, put it in a document. I use this document religiously, so if I'm looking to see, okay, who should I be following up with in my internal consultant network this week, you can just have that list up and say, oh, that's right, I haven't talked to Kathy Smith in a while, let me reach out to her. Okay? All right. So that segues right into the collaboration part of it. In one of the classic rules that I actually learned when I started with Deloitte, they said, I asked a guy who was very successful at Deloitte, I said, how have you gotten to be promoted so quickly? What's your secret? He says, I learned how to network internally within the firm before I started really selling externally. So I realized that my internal colleagues my allies are the most critical people for me to build relationships with for me to be successful. The same goes with solo practitioners out there. It's like, who can I align myself up with? The Angela Dunns of the world, right? Other people who can really be complementary, also other people who do exactly what you do, but you can share best practices and great ideas. So think about, who are your allies? Sometimes I come across clients who realize, you know what? I haven't even talked to some of my former clients in a while. I did good work for them. I'm assuming they'll call me if they need help again. I just haven't talked to them in a year and a half. Well, give them a call, check back. So think about right now in today's world, what could you be doing to collaborate with some of your allies? Maybe you could reach out to one of your clients and say, hey, I'm thinking about writing an article on topic X. Do you want to co-author it with me? This might be a great opportunity because you have an area of expertise that I don't. I think we would really complement each other. Or I'm thinking about doing a webinar on Zoom. Do you want to co-present with me? This could be with peers, it could be with current clients, it could be with a prospective client, which is even better, right? You're trying to strengthen and deepen that relationship with a prospective client. Here's an opportunity for you to collaborate with that person. Competitors, as I said, I've had very frank and open conversations with people because I think one of the most challenging things for a consultant is, how do I price it? How do I package it? I think I know how to market it, but man, that can be difficult. I've had very frank and open conversations with my competitors saying, what are you doing? How do you package it? How do you position it? All they can say is, that's none of your business, Doug. But I was really surprised that most people said, happy to share. How about you? What are you doing? Because if you realize that if you approach the market with the level of confidence and conviction that, hey, this is a very big pie. There are a lot of people who need help from us. I would never disparage my competition. I want to align myself and be friends with my competition, because maybe sometimes they're just so overwhelmed they have no more capacity, and they say, hey, look, talk to Doug, he can help you. I'm booked up, right? Or maybe it's someone in the East Coast. I stay in regular contact with about 12 of my competitors all over the US. I just check and say, how are you dealing with COVID-19? What are you guys doing, right? Are you getting creative? Wow, brilliant idea. I didn't think about doing it that way. Thank you. Here's what I've been doing, right? So think about what else you could be doing to collaborate, not just with former colleagues or your peers or your clients, but also your competitors. Okay. This is an important topic because you're all thinking, wow, okay, a lot of my business is dried out. Frankly, has for me. I do a lot of one-on-one coaching, but I was really building my business up to do a lot of in-person workshops for big groups. And I had about 5 projects in the works. And then COVID-19 hit and it was like, it all vanished. I'm sure you could all relate to a certain degree. So it's like, all right, how do we pivot, right? So one of the things I thought about, and I've talked to Angela about this as well, and it's like, wow, okay, everyone's hurting right now. Everyone's dealing with this crisis in a different way. Some people are go-getters and say, we'll get through it. Other people are deer in headlights thinking, what do we do? Everyone has a different way of reacting to the situation. As professionals, as consultants, it's your duty to help your clients, right? And I take this on as like, okay, what can I do to help out my existing clients, realizing that they're hurting, they don't have a lot of money to spend. What can I do to deepen my relationships with my existing clients? My approach is that this is not a time, even now, just to have high expectations to get a lot of new clients, a lot of new business. If that comes, great. There are still people out there who need your help. But this is a fantastic opportunity to deepen the existing relationships and to deepen that brand loyalty to help these people out. So for example, I have one client it's a national accounting firm, and I was doing some one-on-one coaching with some of the folks in DC, and I reached out to the managing partner and I said, look, I know you guys it's really tight right now. Let me do this for you. Let me just put on a couple Zoom webinars for your entire partner group on my dime, just to help these partners adapt and pivot with the current situation. How's that sound? They said, Doug, that'd be fantastic. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, that'd be great. So that was an offering I did, and I started thinking, I said, you know what, I should probably do this to all of my good clients. It's time, that's all it is. And frankly, I have a little extra time. I'm sure a lot of you do too. So it's like, okay, what can I do to really strengthen this? Because when we get through this, they'll remember that. And there was no ulterior motive to it. There was no like, here, I'll do this, but I'm hoping you're going to scratch my back. No, this is a way just to give. There is that way of creating that law of reciprocity where you figure out what you can do to give, and eventually that will come back. But don't have any expectations saying, okay, I did you solid. What do you got for me? Do you have any new business? That will just undermine the whole purpose of that outreach. So here are some things that you should consider when you want to change your offerings. What can you do to go the extra mile with your clients? How can you repackage, repurpose, or retool your offerings? Maybe you can take some of your offerings and modify it. So for example, I usually do a 6 or 12-month one-on-one coaching package. I decided to offer a 3-month coaching package at a reduced price. So it's a lower risk, lower cost package just to help people get through it. And it really resonated well with some of my clients. So maybe you could do something like that. Maybe you could retool it and start thinking, okay, some of my traditional offerings were in person, so what could I be doing now virtually, via Zoom, via conference groups, whatever it may be. This is a time to get creative. This is also a time to be talking to some of your peers and your competitors, saying, how are you guys repackaging, repurposing your offerings? Client profiling is another thing that you should be thinking about. It's like, okay, this is a great opportunity for me to get to know my clients better. There is a challenge that I give a lot of my clients is saying, how well do you really know your client or your prospective client? Do you know how and when they buy services from consultants? Do you know who the key influences are at that company? Is it just that person, or is it one of their colleagues that also makes that decision, right? So it's easy to fall into the trap of making the assumptions. Well, I'm assuming they're going to call me for these reasons. Confirm, all right? So take yourself through that exercise, and I'll share a document later if we have some time about how you can profile your clients both in a personal and professional level. And the mapping, relationship mapping, is an opportunity for you to think, okay, I know this one person at this company or this firm. Who else should I get to know at that company who might have some type of influence in hiring me, or might also have their own needs where I could help them out? Oftentimes you fall back to that sense of security of thinking, okay, I'm just going to rely on my champion, my one contact at this client to hire me, right? And that's fine. But sometimes if you're trying to squeeze more business out of that one person, it's not always going to happen. So the fishing analogy I always give my clients is like, okay, you could drop one line in the water and try to catch a fish. But what would it be like if you dropped 5 lines in the water, like trolling off a boat? Probably increase your chances of catching more fish. It's the same with relationship mapping. If you can leverage your existing champion to meet more people of that organization, they're going to sing your praises, and then you might have more opportunities you could surface. Okay? And then this is an easy one to get caught up in, and that is you could be heads down in your client service work. You have that convenient excuse you're not going to do any BD work, so you're not going to do any BD at all. So if you can dedicate at least 10 to 15 minutes a day to business development, first thing in the morning before your day gets carried away, it can make a big difference. All right, we're going to take a quick breakout session right here. And what I want you to do in this is, in your groups, share with your group, take a couple of minutes, what you are doing differently right now in your offerings, or how are you pivoting your business that you have found to be successful? Whether it is going the extra mile with the client, retooling your package, and then we'll come back and we'll share a few from there. So Angela, do you want to control the breakout, or do you want me to do that?
Ulrika's got it.
I have it set. Yeah, so you're going to be 3 to 4 people in each room for 10 minutes. Is that the plan?
Yeah, yep. And we're running a little bit tight in time. Maybe can we make it 8 minutes? Is that enough time, guys?
Yeah.
Or do you want to stay with 10?
8 is great.
Yeah,
let's do 8 just because of the time we have.
All right.
Okay.
I'll kick it off right now.
Great.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, I think we're all back.
Yep.
Let me get back to the screen here. How'd that go, everyone? Did you share some good ideas?
It was great.
Excellent. All right. Does anybody want to share what they learned from their group that was like, wow, that's a brilliant idea. I should try that myself. Maybe one or two people want to share real quick in 30 seconds or less. No?
I'll go. Really enjoyed what you were saying to Gloria about checking in with her competitors. That wasn't really something that I had thought of doing. And, you know, really, and the idea that you had about, I guess it was a colleague of yours who gave away a month of her service to one of her best clients, but put a boundary around it by saying it's just a month.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a good trusted competitor of mine who works for a large consulting firm. I said, what are you doing? I was talking to her in early April, and she said, I reached out to my top 3 clients and said, okay, this month is yours. Whatever you need help with, I'll do it for you. I'm not going to charge you for it. It's like, that is brilliant. And that gave me the idea of reaching out and at least offering some services to some of my top clients for no charge. There's boundaries to it. Okay. Just for the sake of time, we're going to move on. There's a couple more points I want to make here. One of the biggest challenges I think any of you guys can make is just staying top of mind with your contacts. I'm going to go with the assumption that you're all very good at your field, but you're also some of the best kept secrets out there. And it's easy to get lazy and not to stay in contact with your key relationships. And so you got to think of ways to do this. And I mentioned in this client profiling, the more you can learn about your contacts on a personal level, in that little comment section of the relationship tracker, that will give you excuses to check in with them on a regular basis. My whole approach is, I don't want you to be salesy to your folks. I don't want you to say, hey, how you doing? Do you have any business for me? Right? But if you could reach out to these people for saying, hey, you know what? Came across this wonderful bottle of this winery that I just discovered, thought you'd like it. I know you're a big Cabernet fan. Maybe you and I could go there sometime once the rules get a little relaxed with shelter in place. So think of ways that you could stay in regular contact, because I would venture to guess the majority of people, if you don't stay in enough contact with the people, sometimes because you just don't know what to say, right? But if the more you learn about what really makes them tick on a personal level, those are great excuses to reach out and stay in touch. And then this is probably one of the biggest challenges for most of you to test your patience and your perseverance. This is a long-term play. I was talking to some of the top business development professionals I used to manage at a consulting firm. I said, what is the average time it takes from the first time you meet somebody to the time they actually hire you? They said, oh, 1.5 years, 2 years. So yeah, sounds about right. Right? And they think, gasp, right? 2 years until I'm going to get business from this person? That's a long time. It's pretty standard. Business development takes a while. And I think the biggest mistake most professionals make is they give up too early in their contacts. It could just be the timing is not right. They don't have a need. They don't have the budget. Maybe they don't have the decision-making power. Whatever it may be, don't give up on those folks. You plant seeds early. So some of the things you're doing today won't pay off until next year. But if you are reaching out to enough people and you have enough activity going on, you will stumble across opportunities that will hit right away. Right time at the right place, right? Janet, great to meet you. As a matter of fact, I think I need your help. Can you help me out? Right, sure. Right, so think about this. It's all about patience and persistence. And I just want to give you a few key takeaways before we wrap it up. And just remember, getting better organized can make a big difference in your efficiency. It really helps you alleviate some of the key contacts slipping through the cracks. It also helps you focus better on the people who are going to have the best payout down the road, makes you more efficient. Don't forget to collaborate with as many people as you can. Don't just think about the obvious folks, but think about other folks like peers and competitors. And don't assume you know everything about your client. Confirm it. Ask the hard questions. I've learned over years that I didn't ask the hard questions up front, and I lost the opportunity because I just didn't know how they were making their decisions, who the key influencers and that type of thing. Leverage your champions to meet new contacts, always expanding your footprint within existing contacts. It's all about patience and persistence. And if you're not doing, whatever you're doing right now is not working, now is a perfect time to change. All right, think about mixing it up. Get some ideas from other folks, share best practices, and give it a shot. Just try it. Doesn't work, you always go back to what you're doing before, but this is a really good time to pivot and try some new things. So I have one call to action for you before we wrap it up. And that is, this is a 4-week business development challenge that I posted on LinkedIn back in April, and it went viral. And here's the challenge for all of you. Contact one person a day, Monday through Friday for 4 weeks. But it has to be someone who has not heard from you in at least 4 weeks. Mix it up. It could be clients, former clients, prospective clients, colleagues, whatever. And then keep it personal. Here's COVID-19 is a perfect excuse to check with people on a personal level. Don't make it about business. If that person wants to go and talk about business, sure, you can honor that, but don't have an ulterior motive for your outreach. And then mix up your method of outreach. Send some emails, make a phone call, set up a Zoom call, whatever it may be. All right? And then just organize it. I did this for 4 weeks. I had the name, I had an Excel spreadsheet with the name, date of outreach, method of outreach, and had my notes. Try it. How long does it take to reach out to one person a day? And if you miss a day, make up for it the next day and reach out to 2 people. At the end of the challenge, you've reached out to 20 people who have not heard back from you or heard from you at least 4 weeks. And you'd be surprised what's going to happen when you rekindle some of those old relationships. Okay, here's how I can help you. I have a monthly BD insights and tips on my email list. If you want to go to my website, you can join my email list. I also have a copy of the relationship tracker. If you email me, I'm happy to email you a copy of that relationship tracker in an Excel spreadsheet. And if you have any questions, you're stuck on something, you need some help, my offer to BACN is to give back and say, I'll give you a 30-minute complimentary consultation, okay? And in the chat line, I'll send you a link to that, to my Calendly if you want to book a consultation.
And how about the relationship tracker, Doug? Can we get a hold of that?
Yeah, here's my contact information. Angela, I could do one of 2 things. I can either have you email it out to the group, or folks, if you're interested in receiving a copy, just email me and I'll email you a copy of the relationship tracker.
I think they should email you and get a hold of you directly.
Okay, perfect. So here's my contact information, and I know we're kind of run over in time a little bit. I'll defer to you, Angela, if there's any time for Q&A. Otherwise,
I think we have time for Q&A. Do you want to go ahead and stop your share?
Okay.
And we'll open it up. And does anybody have any questions for Doug? And Doug, thank you so much. That was great. You know, one of the things that I have learned that's super important, and we forget, is that whenever you're in a crisis, whenever things are interesting, it's best to go back to basics. It really is. The best answers are going to be the simplest ones. And it's such a good thing to be reminded of that. And as I said before, collaboration is going to be all it. Help each other. Whatever you can do to start collaborating, I've seen some beautiful collaborations between people in this group, and it will make all of us stronger. So anybody have any questions? Paul.
I have one. Doug, awesome presentation. Do you have a favorite CRM that you love that you can recommend?
I haven't worked with many. Salesforce is really the go-to. I mean, that's a good CRM. It can be a little bit expensive. The CRM is only as good as the people who use it, right? And so I think I think that Salesforce is really kind of the gold standard out there, in my opinion. There are some CRMs that are tailored to certain industries, like the legal industry. There's one called Interaction. For your industry, Paul, I don't know if there's one tailored directly to that. I would Google that. But just note that whatever CRM you do decide to implement, you need to drive compliance. People need to use it. And so it needs to be intuitive, straightforward, it needs to be used, because if it isn't, no one's going to use it. And then it's completely dysfunctional. That's why I just did a relationship tracker. I'm thinking I need something that's brain dead simple that people will actually use. Otherwise, if it's too complicated, people will try it for a few weeks, they get frustrated, and then just forget it, right? And so just whatever you decide to use, whether it's a relationship tracker type of a tool or a CM, go through the demo and make sure, okay, is this, the CRM for dummies, right? Because if it's not, your employees won't use it.
And Renee, do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had a couple of questions about that tracker in terms of different categories. One is these, I know a lot of people who are kind of intermediaries, like they might be the people booking a webinar but not going to hire me, but doing that booking. So that's one category. And the other category is people who reach out to me for mentoring. They want to know about how I've built my network. So I'm wondering where you put those people.
Yeah, I mean, you can name your buckets, your categories any way you want. That's going to be simple and intuitive for you. That's my recommendation. So, for example, you might want to have one bucket that's like past clients. You could have another bucket just being just direct referral sources, right? You could have people who've inquired about mentorship, right? So mentees or whatever. And that way you can track it. And I think one of the things that people forget to do is they don't identify all the different revenue streams that could feed their business. And so they get stuck focusing in just on one or two of them, and they forget about the other three that don't get watered, right? Yet if you actually have some good referral sources out there who hear from you on a regular basis, who truly understand what you do, they're going to be your sales force. So you think about all of these different buckets, however you want to categorize them, as your external sales force, even past clients, because they're going to be seeing those places. Yeah.
That's a great point. And I have a perfect example. A lot of people think because I'm a LinkedIn consultant that I work with job seekers, and I really dislike working with job seekers. It's just not my thing. I really avoid it like the plague. But because of the interesting times that we're in, I have been approached by a lot of large organizations about career development and best practices for job seekers. So I decided to do one for a very large organization. There was 372 women at this webinar on Tuesday night for women in tech, ladies leadership in tech, and did a 2-hour workshop and presentation. And at the end, the CEO said, "Oh, and we have a budget. We would like to hire you for some consulting." And I was like, wow, that was a big surprise. So these days, you just don't know where things are going to come from. So I have a friend who used to say, you say yes until you have to say no, until you run out of time. Yeah. But until then, you just say yes to different opportunities that come along. And absolutely. Joanne, I think you had a question.
Yes, thank you, Angela. Doug, this is a sort of a variation on a theme of what you discussed. I have been asked by a major pharmaceutical company to submit a proposal regarding my executive coaching services, which I submitted a couple days ago. When I submitted it, my question was, please give me an idea of what the next steps are in terms of timing and who's going to review the proposal, etc. It was received with, yes, we got your proposal, but they didn't answer my question. Do you have any tips for how to learn more?
Yeah, so let me ask you a quick question. Did you know the person who reached out to you to ask for the proposal, how strong was your relationship with that person?
Not very strong. I was introduced to the head of the legal team about 8 or 10 years ago. We had a very pleasant conversation. And then she said, we have this need, and she sent me to somebody else in her organization regarding the logistics.
Yeah, because when I get something like that, I get a little more cautious because I'm thinking, okay, I don't know this person that well. Now, if it was a former client who referred that person to me and said, look, you need to reach out to Doug. He helped me. He was amazing, blah, blah, whatever. Then the strength of the probability of them hiring me is much higher. But if they're just reaching out, I need to figure out, okay, am I just a number because they're required to reach out to 3 consultants and need 3 bids, right? But they already have their bias towards somebody else. So I got to be careful how much time I invest in this. So I usually will say, okay, tell me a little bit more about how you guys, what the process is and how you're making a decision. What are you guys looking for in a consultant for this particular matter? Who are the key decision makers? You may or may not get some of the information from them because they don't really know you that well. But at least they'll give you an idea of like, geez, okay, You know, if you don't have a very strong relationship, you don't really know what they're looking for before you submit the proposal, your chances of winning that proposal, I hate to say it, have gone down tremendously, right? Because that is, before you submit the proposal, is your opportunity to really understand a little bit more about how they're making the decision, what their timing is, what the key criteria is. And that's when you still have them, right? Once you submit, they can say, okay, we got it, thanks, we'll get back to you, right? And it's a tough one, you know, and that's why going back to the client profiling is so important. That, okay, let's say for whatever reason, let's hope that you win the proposal. Just don't get me wrong, but if for some reason you don't win that, learn why you didn't win it, and then figure out how you can strengthen the relationship with that particular person moving forward. So for future needs, you have a much better chance of winning new work. Pardon me?
Thank you. I just want to respond that I did have a 45-minute conversation with one of the staff people prior to submitting the proposal to learn more. Okay. And they're looking for more than one consultant to help them.
Good. Okay.
But still, I hear it, you know. Well, I tried to have more follow-up and couldn't get it.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in scoping the project in terms of the details of the project. Oftentimes what people forget to do is to scope how they're making their decision and how they're choosing the consultant, right? So you can get in the nitty-gritty, so you can write the proposal and estimate what your hours are and everything else, but don't forget to ask those questions. So tell me a little bit more what you're looking for in a consultant. What have you done in the past? Who are the key decision makers? How does the decision-making process work internally? So I better know, right? So sometimes they say, okay, great, we got your proposal, but they didn't tell you they're not going to make a decision until September, right? So then you're sitting there thinking, what's going on, right? So always those kinds of questions are really important to ask.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Any other questions? Anybody else have any burning questions for Doug? Well, I have one.
Yeah, Angela, go ahead.
So before you were talking about reaching out to competitors, and I would really love to hear you say just a little bit more about that. So when the initial approach, you know, how do you couch that? What do you say when you reach out to them? Do you use email? Do you use the phone? What's your first step? How do you initiate?
Usually the first step is I get the introduction from someone that we both know. So LinkedIn's a great one. You have a mutual connection. Reach out and say, Angela, I see we both know Susan Smith. Susan's a dear friend of mine. I thought I'd reach out. And maybe I'll reach out to Susan first and say, hey, I see you know Angela Duns. Angela does something similar to what I do. What do you know about Angela? Because I'd love to meet her. I want to see how I can collaborate. And then I would use Susan as my name drop in an email saying, Angela, whether it's a LinkedIn message or just a direct email, hey, I was talking to Susan. She spoke very highly of you. We're in the same business. I'd love to spend the time just to get to know you, to see how we might be able to collaborate. And I'd love to learn a little bit more about your practice, right? We're in the same business. And most of the people are very open and said, yeah, I'd love to meet with you. Now, for me, what I did at the beginning of my practice said, hey, I'm just getting started in this. You're a successful person. If you could do it all over again, what would you do differently? They gave me great pearls of wisdom, right? Now, if I could give you advice, what I'm telling new consultants is if I could do it all differently 4 years ago, I would start writing much sooner. I didn't get into writing until 3 years into my practice. And that was a big mistake because I realized writing is so important. It's an effective way to stay connected with your network and to build your credibility. There's the guru of consultants, Alan Weiss. I've gone to a couple of seminars and I read a lot of his material. And he just said right off the bat, one of the seminars, he says, you guys are all underbranded. I can tell you that right now. You're all under brand. You're not doing enough branding. You're not doing enough writing. You need to get out there. You need to be reaching out to your network on a regular basis. Otherwise, no one's going to know who you are. It's like that was the first thing he said out of his mouth in our webinar, and I'll be damned if it's not right. So, yeah, hope that answers your question, Angela. But
no, that was great.
Well, and you think the natural reaction is, I don't want to tell my competitors my secrets. I don't want to tell prospective clients I don't want to give them all my work. That's proprietary. They need to pay for that. And I've realized, no, you want to do that. Give out the relationship tracker. Give out the client profiling templates. These are important sources of information where they realize they understand how you think. And they say, this is brilliant. I want more of that. How can I hire this person as my coach or trainer? So it's
Yes.
counterintuitive, but it's really important.
And especially in really mobile industries where things change all the time, you can't stay on top of everything. I mean, I know in LinkedIn, I have about 8 people that I call on a regular basis, and they'll notice things that I don't notice. Oh my gosh, I didn't see that that changed, because LinkedIn changes every day, right? And my best information I get from other LinkedIn consultants. And
There you go.
it's phenomenal. So I highly recommend what Doug is talking about. And if they say no thanks, fine, that's great. Then you know that that's what kind of person they are. They want to keep their proprietary information, and that's okay. No harm, no foul.
One more important question to ask. I love asking some of my more trusted clients this question. If I was going to role play with you, Angela, right now, and you're one of my clients for many years, I'd say, Angela, what are some of my competitors doing out there that's really impressed you? Because I know that my clients they're getting hit with all my competitors, right? And so tell me some of the practices that really has impressed you. Do you think it's a great, and they share that's like, that is brilliant. I'm going to use that. Thank you. Right? Why not? Great ideas are meant to be stolen, so to speak. And so, people will help you out. And it's, you're good at so many things, but there's a lot of people out there who have great ideas you never thought about. Find out, ask.
And sometimes it's just like a teeny little twist of a good idea that you already have that can be even 10 times more effective with just a slight adjustment.
Yeah.
And I see that Sheila has a question.
Yes, thank you. I have a question about the tracking spreadsheet, where I get caught is in the details. I have tried something similar in the past, and it lasted for a while. I didn't keep it up, and I think there's one more thing I need to think through before I can figure out how to make it work for me. You had one of your columns was last contact, but you also said you keep track of all the contacts. Is that in that same square? I think it got to be so much information, and if I put everything in there, then how do I see the ones that really need to pop to the surface? That's where I got hung up.
Yeah, Sheila, that's a great question. I think when I have my clients fill the tracker out for the very first time, I just said, put in the rough date of the last time you reached out to that person, how you reached out to them, right? So you might say, oh, wow, okay, it's been a year since I reached out to Susan Smith. It was, June of 2019, and I think it was an email. So just write that, just log that in. And then moving forward, you can just start always put in the very front of it, September 20th, 2020, sent email, right? But you keep all of your data that you put in there short to the point. I use acronyms. LVM is for left voice message, or sent email, or whatever it is, had lunch. If I book a lunch with somebody, or a Zoom call or whatever it is, I'll put it in advance. So that's already in there, right? So if I have a lunch on July 6th moving forward with somebody, then I'll put it in right now. So it's already logged in there. The toughest thing with the tracker with any device is to keep it current.
Yes.
Right? The good news though is if you invest the time in filling it out, even if it's not current, you're going to have all the people in your purview right there in one document. And it's like, oh, that's right. I need to call or reach out to so-and-so. Or these are my top 5 people I want to reach out to this week because I realize I haven't talked to them in a while, right?
So I noticed you had one column saying the next action needed. So once you've taken that action, do you transfer that into the record of what you've done?
Yeah. So if an action item is send Angela my relationship tracker, right? Then I could put in the contact, June 26th, emailed Angela RT relationship tracker. That's it, right? And then you can delete the action item in your actions.
So you set it up now, beginning with the current date and going forward, but you could still be using the same spreadsheet 5 years from now.
Oh yeah, and that's where it really pays out. Where it really pays off is fast forward a year or two from now, and you look back and say, okay, when was the last time I actually reached out to Sheila Mearson? Oh my gosh, it's been over a year. I need to reach out to her right away, right? Time flies, out of sight, out of mind. So I would recommend start with your top 10, 15, maybe 20 people in the buckets you've assigned, and just start with that, right? Don't feel overwhelmed, because if you realize, my God, I have 500 contacts, I'm not going to, you'll never do it. Start short. Just start with your A rank, your most important people, because those are the people who need your attention on a regular basis. And then you can add on as you go.
Thanks.
All right. Because I'm a co-host, I don't get to raise my hand, but I did have a question.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just jump in. You had this idea of collaborating with your clients about writing an article, and I really thought that was a great idea. I can see that working. And I just wondered if you had other ideas just off the top of your head that where you've seen people collaborating with their clients.
Yeah, we used to do this at Deloitte all the time. It's like, hey, if these particular clients are our key clients, what can we do to help them make them look good, right? People love to opine on certain topics, right? Hey, do you want to join us for a panel? We're going to have a 4-person panel on this topic. Can you be our subject matter expert on that particular topic? People would love to hear from you, right? That's one idea. I'm thinking about writing an article. I'd love to get the in-house perspective or from a tech company. Would you be willing to co-write this with me? So I'm always, or you know what, I didn't even talk about this, but it's like, hey, you know what? One of the things you could be doing is reaching out to them saying, how can I help you? Is there anybody in my network that you're trying to meet? The power of your own network to introduce people to your other people in your network is really powerful, right? So you could reach out to existing clients and say, hey, there's someone I think you would really hit it off with. They are also in the tech space. They also are in a leadership role. They're also going through some challenges around COVID. I think you two would really enjoy getting to know each other. You have similar interests. You're both into hiking and yoga or whatever it may be, and you might be able to collaborate more. Would you want me to make that introduction? Reach out to both individuals, make the introduction, you've done your job. So when you can leverage your network to introduce other people in your network, people want to be closer to you because they think, wow, Janet's got this really strong network. I want to stay close to her. So when she reaches out to me, I'm going to respond back. A little bit of an end around, but it's just ways to collaborate. And it's really important. I don't think anyone does enough of it.
Excellent point. And Judy has a question.
One of the things that came up in our small group was, what about working with a virtual assistant and the possibility of a group of us finding one and doing that? Are you working with a VA or VAs, and what kinds of things are you finding helpful?
I'm not working with a VA, and I probably should be. So if you know a good one, let's talk. But with the mastermind group that Angela and I are part of, and some other consultants I've spoken to, they've had great recommendations of VAs. A lot of these VAs reside in the Midwest, East Coast. They're very inexpensive because of just the labor cost is less expensive out there. Everyone's working virtually from home. So I've probably got a list of 3 or 4 names of VAs that people have recommended. I've also been very grateful, and something for you to consider doing is to say, hey, you know what? If you're working with any new consultants, here's a time to pay it forward, because I had a mentor of mine who had been consulting for a while, and she said, okay, this is who you need to contact for VA. This is who you need to contact to develop your website. Here's who you should contact who does great graphic design work, who's done work on my slides. And they're all in the Midwest, and they do great work, right? So think about sharing ideas amongst each other. Like, hey, who are you guys using for a graphic designer? Who are you using for a LinkedIn coach? That's a plug for Angela. Whatever, you know. So and that's a great way just to pay it forward, and also maybe if you want to share a VA, absolutely.
Great, thank you.